Online reports claim a catastrophic event is unfolding in Washington state. Videos show a massive crack splitting open the side of Mount Adams, a 12,000-foot volcano. Headlines warn of a death zone alert for 92,000 people. The images are alarming, the warnings are dire. And according to the United States Geological Survey, the official volcano alert level for Mount Adams is normal. The aviation color code is green, the lowest possible state of rest. So what is the truth? Is a major American volcano tearing itself apart in plain sight while government agencies look the other way? Or is something else happening on that mountain? Something misunderstood, misrepresented, and in some ways far more insidious. Before we continue, we have a question for our community. Have you ever received an emergency alert for a natural hazard in your area? And did you feel prepared? Tell us in the comments. The perspective from the ground is crucial. Now, let's begin. This story is not about a volcano that is erupting. It is about why so many believe it is. And it is about the real documented threat that looms over the region. A threat that has nothing to do with phantom cracks, and everything to do with ice and gravity. An incredible number of people who find this intelligence vital to their awareness forget to subscribe. If this information is critical to you, you cannot risk missing the next investigation. This is the moment to hit subscribe and activate notifications before we proceed. It is essential. But here is the detail that tells the real story. The crack that has fueled so much alarm is not a fissure in the volcanic rock. It is a chasm in ice, a scar left behind by a colossal avalanche of frozen water and debris, not molten magma. The mountain is not cracking open. Its glaciers are collapsing. This is how it happened. On October 29th, 2019, a vast section of the Avalanche Glacier on the southern flank of Mount Adams suddenly let go. Millions of tons of ice, destabilized and lubricated by meltwater, broke free and cascaded down the slope. It carved a massive mile-long path of destruction, leaving behind a stark, dark gash against the white snowpack. To the untrained eye, observing from a distance or through a camera lens, it looked like the mountain itself had split. The event was not volcanic. It was gravitational, but the narrative was already taking hold. Then, it happened again. On August 20th, 2021, another large ice avalanche occurred, this time on the Klickitat Glacier. The debris traveled for nearly a mile. Once again, tremors of alarm spread through online communities. And once again, the USGS Cascades Volcano Observatory issued a statement. They said, and this is a direct quote, regarding the nature of these events, ice avalanches are a common occurrence on steep glaciated volcanoes. They can be caused when a glacier moves over a steep drop-off or when it becomes destabilized for other reasons. Current monitoring information shows no signs of volcanic unrest, no earthquake swarms, no ground deformation, no anomalous gas emissions. The volcano was, and remains, asleep. So why do these events happen? To understand that, you have to understand Mount Adams itself. It is not just a mountain, it is a titan of ice. After Mount Rainier, Mount Adams holds the largest volume of glacial ice of any volcano in the Cascade Range. An estimated 4.3 billion cubic feet of perennial ice and snow are piled on its summit and flanks. These are not static sheets of ice. They are rivers, moving under their own immense weight, grinding down the mountainside. As climate patterns shift, as temperatures warm, the rate of melting increases. Water seeps down to the bedrock, lubricating the interface between the glacier and the mountain. This makes the ice sheet unstable. Add the sheer steepness of the volcanic cone, and a collapse becomes inevitable. It is a matter of physics, not geology, gravity, not magma. Yet the perception of an imminent eruption persists. It is a powerful story, one that is easy to believe when presented with dramatic, out-of-context footage. It taps into a primal fear, and here is what made the misinformation so much worse. The narrative of the crack became tangled with a real, terrifying number. 92,000, the death zone alert for 92,000 Americans, is a complete fabrication. No such alert exists, but the number itself is very real. It comes from a 2020 USGS report, a scientific assessment of long-term hazards. It is the estimated number of people who reside within the geologic Lahar hazard zone for Mount Adams. These are the communities built on the ancient mudflow deposits of the volcano, in the valleys that would, in a real eruption, channel a devastating flow of debris. They are not in a death zone. They are in a risk zone. The alert is not for today or tomorrow. It is a permanent geological condition of living in that landscape. The sensationalists took a piece of crucial long-term safety planning and twisted it into a weapon of immediate panic. They conflated the benign ice avalanches with a non-existent eruptive warning, creating a perfect storm of fear. And if you've ever wondered how a seemingly quiet mountain could present such a widespread threat, let us know your thoughts in the comments. The scale of these forces is difficult to comprehend. Here is what is not making most headlines. The true danger from Mount Adams is not a crack. It is a lahar. A lahar is a volcanic mudflow. But the word mudflow is deceptively gentle. This is not mud. It is a slurry of rock, ash, debris, and water, with the consistency of wet concrete. It moves at speeds exceeding highway traffic. Sometimes over 60 miles per hour, it can be hundreds of feet deep and miles wide. It does not flow around obstacles. It demolishes and buries them. Homes, bridges, roads, forests, everything in its path is entombed. And Mount Adams is uniquely primed to produce them. That 4.3 billion cubic feet of ice is a cataclysm in waiting. In the event of a future eruption, even a small one, the heat would cause catastrophic, instantaneous melting. The resulting flood of water would pick up loose rock and soil from the volcano's steep flanks, rapidly transforming into a lahar of almost unimaginable scale. This is the real threat. Not what is happening now, but what could happen. Look at a map of the region. The primary lahar pathways from Mount Adams follow the river valleys that radiate from its base. The Klickitat River, the White Salmon River, the Lewis River. These valleys are not empty wilderness. They are lifelines for communities. They are home to towns like Trout Lake and BZ Corner, small communities nestled at the foot of the volcano, directly in the path of highest risk. Further downstream, these rivers flow into the mighty Columbia River, a major artery for commerce and life in the Pacific Northwest. A large-scale lahar from Mount Adams wouldn't just stay in the mountain's shadow. It would surge down these valleys and into the Columbia, potentially disrupting shipping channels, destroying infrastructure, and impacting communities tens, even hundreds of miles away. This is where the 92,000 number comes from. It is the sum of everyone living in these downstream paths, the people in the path of a future, hypothetical lahar. Their homes are built on the fertile ground left by lahars of the past. It is a geological debt that could one day come due. The USGS hazard maps, published for public awareness and city planning, draw these inundation zones with cold scientific precision. For the people who live there, those lines on a map represent a permanent, low probability, high consequence risk. The danger is not imminent, but it is real. If you know anyone living in the Pacific Northwest, especially in the areas around the Columbia River Gorge, sharing this video is more than just a click. It is an act of public service helping to replace fear with factual understanding. Liking this video also helps our investigation reach more people who need to be aware of the real risks, not the manufactured ones. Thank you to those who share this with family and friends. To understand the destructive potential of a lahar from a Cascade volcano, we do not need to rely on hypotheticals. We have a terrifying precedent. On May 18th, 1980, Mount St. Helens, a geological cousin to Mount Adams just 35 miles to the west, erupted with catastrophic force. While the blast itself was devastating, some of the most far-reaching destruction was caused by its lahars. The eruption flash melted the volcano's glaciers, unleashing a series of massive mudflows. The largest of these surged down the North Fork of the Tidal River. It was a churning wall of mud, rock, and timber, moving at over 50 miles per hour and reaching depths of nearly 200 feet. It destroyed 27 bridges, nearly 200 homes, and miles of highway. It filled the shipping channel of the Columbia River with 45 million cubic yards of sediment, stranding dozens of ocean-going vessels and costing the port over $1 billion in today's money. All of that from a volcano smaller than Mount Adams. Adams is larger in volume, at approximately 85 cubic miles compared to St. Helens' 60, and holds significantly more ice. The potential energy stored at its summit is immense. The precedent is there. The ingredients are in place. All that is missing is the trigger. And this is the paradox of Mount Adams. It is often called the forgotten volcano of the Cascades. It sits quietly, overshadowed by the infamy of Mount St. Helens and the looming ever-present threat of Mount Rainier over the Seattle-Tacoma metro area. Mount Adams has not had a significant eruption in approximately 1,000 years. Its last confirmed activity was a small event at a feature called South Butte, around 1950 CE. For a millennium, it has been dormant. This long period of silence has allowed a sense of complacency to settle in. It seems peaceful, static, permanent. But it is not. Mount Adams is classified as a potentially active volcano, not extinct. The forces that built it are still at work deep beneath the earth, and there are clues on the surface that hint at the heat that still resides within. Here is a detail that few people know. In the 1930s, the summit crater of Mount Adams was the site of an active sulfur mine. Entrepreneurs, braving the brutal conditions at 12,000 feet, mined elemental sulfur directly from fumaroles and vents inside the crater. They lived in a cabin near the summit and used mule trains to haul hundreds of tons of pure sulfur down the treacherous slopes. The fact that pure sulfur was being deposited in crystalline form at the surface is direct, irrefutable evidence of an active hydrothermal system. Hot gas-charged water was percolating up from deep within the volcano, leaving behind its mineral payload. That system is still active today, a quiet reminder of the magma chamber miles below, cooling but not yet cold. This is the second time we are mentioning this, and I know, but it is that important. A stunning number of viewers benefit from this research but are not subscribed. If you haven't yet, now is the moment. The way platforms recommend content is unpredictable. Subscribing is the only way to guarantee you see our next investigation into the stories that matter. Please, take 1 second to do it now. The volcanic history of Adams is also far more complex than just a single cone. It is the center of the Mount Adams volcanic field, a sprawling area that includes dozens of smaller vents and basaltic lava flows. The mountain did not grow in one continuous process, but in fits and starts over tens of thousands of years. Most of the main cone was constructed between 40,000 and 10,000 years ago. This long history includes not just eruptions, but massive structural failures. Sometime in the last 20,000 years, the entire southwest side of the volcano collapsed in a colossal flank failure known as the Great Slide. An enormous section of the mountain gave way, creating a debris avalanche that was one of the largest in the history of the Cascades. That ancient avalanche spread out for miles, and it is what created the very ground where the Trout Lake community now sits. The town is built upon the rubble of a prehistoric collapse. This event shows that the mountain can fail on a massive scale even without an eruption. Gravity, ice, and hydrothermally altered weakened rock can be a devastating combination on their own. And that brings us to the most critical part of the story, the monitoring. How do we know Mount Adams is not waking up? The answer lies with the scientists at the USGS Cascades Volcano Observatory and the Pacific Northwest Seismic Network, or PNSN. Their job is to keep a constant vigil on these sleeping giants. Mount Adams is currently monitored by a network of 6 seismic stations. These are incredibly sensitive instruments that can detect the faintest tremors in the earth. That data is streamed in real time to the PNSN, a joint operation between the University of Washington and the University of Oregon. Scientists are not looking for just any earthquake. They are looking for specific patterns. A dormant volcano like Adams will have a low level of background seismicity. Small, occasional quakes are normal as the Earth's crust shifts. What signals a reawakening is a change in that pattern. They look for swarms of small earthquakes occurring in the same place over and over. This can indicate that magma is on the move, breaking rock as it forces its way to the surface. They look for the signature of a low-frequency or long-period earthquake, which can be caused by the movement of fluids, like magma or gas, within the volcanic plumbing. They also use GPS stations to look for ground deformation, a swelling or tilting of the volcano's flanks, as the magma chamber below inflates. They use gas sensors to detect changes in the composition of gases, like sulfur dioxide being released from fumaroles. As of today, none of these indicators are present at Mount Adams. The seismic data shows only the normal low-level background noise. There are no swarms. The ground is not swelling. The gas levels are stable. This is how scientists can state with such confidence that the alert level is green. They are not guessing, they are interpreting a constant stream of hard data. But here is the vulnerability in that system. A network of 6 seismometers for a volcano that has a volume of 85 cubic miles is sparse. The USGS itself acknowledges this. In one of their publications, they state that the current monitoring network for Mount Adams is not sufficient to provide robust, short-term eruption forecasts. It is enough to detect a clear reawakening, but not to track its progression with high fidelity. If the volcano were to show signs of unrest, the CVO would scramble to deploy a temporary network of dozens of additional instruments to get a clearer picture. But that takes time, time that in a real crisis would be precious. This is the real quiet negligence. Not a conspiracy to hide an eruption, but the systemic budgetary reality of monitoring a forgotten volcano. Resources are finite. They are concentrated on the volcanoes that pose the most immediate well-known threat, like Rainier and St. Helens. Mount Adams, with its 1,000-year slumber, receives a lower priority. The vigilance is real, but the resources are stretched thin. The mountain's long dormancy has created a dangerous blind spot in our collective awareness and preparedness. The story of the crack on Mount Adams is a cautionary tale for the digital age. It shows how easily a natural, non-threatening event can be distorted and weaponized to create panic. It highlights our disconnection from the natural world, where a spectacular ice avalanche is mistaken for a volcanic catastrophe. But in debunking the fear, we uncover a deeper, more complicated truth. The fake threat of the crack distracts from the very real hazard of the Lahars. The hysteria over a non-existent death zone alert drowns out the necessary sober conversations about long-term risk and community preparedness in the valleys downstream. The problem is not that the mountain is cracking open. The problem is that one day it will reawaken. The historical record is clear. Dormancy is temporary. The magma chamber below is still there. The 4.3 billion cubic feet of ice on its summit is still there. The 92,000 people in the downstream hazard zones are still there. We have traded a sensational immediate lie for a complex long-term truth. One final reminder, this work is only possible through viewer support. The single most important way to ensure these investigations continue is to subscribe now. The question now is not whether the internet rumors are true. They are not. The question is what happens when the real signs of unrest begin. Will the scientific warnings from the USGS be heard above the noise of social media panic? Will the communities in the path of a future Lahar have enough time to evacuate? Will the sparse monitoring network be enough to give them that time? The ice avalanches are a powerful reminder that the mountain is a dynamic, powerful force, constantly changing. They are not a sign of eruption, but they are a symptom of a planet in flux, a system under stress. The alert level for Mount Adams is normal. The seismic sensors record nothing more than the quiet shifting of the Earth. But the geological clock is ticking. The risk is not measured in viral videos or sensational headlines. It is measured in cubic miles of rock, in billions of cubic feet of ice, and in the 1,000 years of silence that cannot and will not last forever. The edifice is stable, the hazard maps are drawn, and the immense potential energy on the summit remains a silent waiting for a trigger that has not yet arrived.